All right, so design systems and Drupal, construction management, really of all the things. This talk is sponsored by VMLY&R, so thank you. Hi, I'm Jacob Berthelsen. I'm a technology specialist at VMLY&R, and this is the debut of my beautiful pandemic hairstyle. As we get started, just a minor heads up that there will be, sadly, no GIFs in this presentation. Yep, no GIFs. I know many are saddened by that news, as my past talks have included many artisanal, hand-selected GIFs. However, at this time, for streaming consideration, the GIFs will be absent. Anyways, I guess I've been building parts of design systems for a bit now. I started small with a simple focus on colors and fonts, and expanded into component libraries to highlight the full capabilities of a Drupal paragraph. Now I've been working on refining all of that and expanding outside of the website. More on that here in a bit. Today, we're going to align on the definition of a design system, look into how past methods have evolved into today's standards, explore how those standards are built and organized in Drupal, and touch on some selling points. So what is a design system? And I know that's a bit of a question here. Let's look into that. In my experience, a design system is a collection of tokens, style guides, component libraries, templates, and documentation, all governed by a cross-discipline team. In short, a design system can be a central hub for all the things that make up a brand. As a design system expands, it houses information and tools that can be used for more than the web. A design system can be a central hub for all things the brand needs, for all mediums, such as multiple websites, apps, print, social, and beyond. Quick example, this is a behind-the-scenes image that's recently shared from ClarityConf. It shows the director and cinematographer calibrating the color and lighting of the backdrop and matching it to the style guide. That is consistency between mediums. Never assume that the system you're making is only for one thing. Don't limit your system or yourself for that matter. Encourage others to use it for things outside of the obvious that will help expand the system. Now that we have a definition to work from, let's look at some past limitations and how those have evolved into today's standards. Variables for common foundational elements, such as colors, fonts, and spacings, are known as tokens. To paraphrase from Adobe Spectrum Design System, tokens are all the values needed to construct and maintain a design system: spacing, color, typography, object styles, animation, etc., represented as data. They're used in place of hard-coded values in order to ensure flexibility and unity across all product experiences. I know tokens are really cool and we can really get into them, but maybe that's worth a future talk here. Tokens are more than a style sheet. Tokens are an agnostic way to store variables so that your design system can be shared across platforms like for iOS, Android, and websites. The idea is to not have variables stored in a style sheet that's copied from project to project, but to have them be stored in a JSON file that will then be transformed into the code needed for all those other platforms. There are generation tools like Style Dictionary and designer-friendly tools like Figma that can help with that. A crazy list of elements becomes style guides. A while ago, there was this module we used that spat out every element you use onto a single page. The page would be giant, jumbled, and pretty overwhelming. It also had this monster navigation of jump links at the top, which was nice at first, but would never fail that the one thing you needed would be down at the very bottom. And since the menu wasn't in fixed position, you have to scroll all the way back up and try again when it wasn't the thing you were looking for. At the time, that module, even with the flaws, it was super helpful in making sure that all the defined elements had received some styling effort. Over time, we built upon and added some organization to that idea. So what we did was we split up all the things that didn't belong together and grouped the things that do. Provided nice landing pages and navigation to quickly get the user where they needed to go. Added version numbers and changelogs. We felt that in a large project, we needed to address common questions like, are these the new buttons? When was this changed? Improve focus on documentation. The past method was done in a WYSIWYG style, in that what you see is what you got, with no extra helpful text, links, or even a nice note. These days, I want to know as much as possible about anything in the system. When should I use it? Where should I use it? What modifiers and alternatives are available? We'll touch on documentation somewhere in a sec. More than design, style guides are great for content items such as voice, tone, and grammar. Style guides can be used for whatever helps support the brand. Remember, design systems are for more than just a website. A single list of all the components because it becomes a component library. Similar to the single page of elements, for a little while we used to build a single page to house examples of every component. That one page had everything. I mean, everything on it. You know that page? You have all your blocks, paragraphs, bricks, whatever you used, all stacked up with their varying options. It could get a little crazy, but it was a good start. The issues for using a single page for everything approach is that it's not easy to navigate, it can be difficult to share with others, and it can be challenging to add more documentation and resources. So similar to style guides, we added some organization by splitting things up, grouping, adding version numbers, changelogs, and robust documentation for all. This section is probably mostly focused on the website. However, these patterns can also be applied in other mediums wherever possible. My personal favorite example of component pages is on the Australian government design system. I bring this up all the time, and I know that a few people listening are like, oh, here we go again. But it's great. Check it out when you can. Some things that it includes that make it great are an overview of all the variants with code in multiple languages, info that includes statuses, history tags, and who's worked on it, rationale and why things were done, accessibility examples of how the components worked with color impairment, grayscale, keyboard accessibility, and screen readers. Code for everything you need, properties, variables, and other helpful bits. And it makes discussion easy by providing links for community feedback. Copying and pasting from a page becomes copying and pasting with style. You know, when you make a page that has all the cool things and becomes the team's new fave, from then on, the work that you've asked to do is to recreate that page, or at least some form of the items on it. Sometimes when recreating things with a bunch of tabs open, it's easy to make a mistake and edit the wrong page on prod. And the next thing you know, the special thing is missing. Having a template library can provide organization and simplification to reuse individual components or full pages. This provides a great resource to reuse tested UX patterns. And guess what? There's a module to help make copying easier. The module allows you to clone whole pages or individual parts of a page. Using it is a great way to speed up content creation. Wondering, how would we do this becomes governance. You get this ask to make something new. How are the decisions going to be made? If only there was a team in place that could help talk this over. Is it a variation on existing, or is it brand new? Will foundational elements be needed? Establishing a team with roles and processes makes sure that questions and concerns from all groups are addressed and that things are done thoroughly. You never know how something can grow. In my experience, a design system takes more than an individual. It shouldn't be just one person's baby. A team of people with different specialties is a must. The team should be committed and motivated to constantly grow and improve. However, like Heather said earlier in her keynote, avoid becoming too big to be nimble. I really like this quote, build bridges, not dams. There'll be times where something brand new will come up. Nothing in the system will work for it. It's an individual snowflake. By using existing elements wherever possible, you can bring this new thing in to be a part of the system and available for future use. It might be a snowflake now, but later it could be widely used. Let's make sure it gets all the love, testing, and documentation it needs. You know how it goes. Once they see it, they'll want more of it. Asking, what is this thing, becomes documentation. We've all been the new person on an established project, given some tickets and a README to start with. Remember how much that sucked? Imagine being new to the company and or to the profession. As cool as your team is, you don't want to feel like a bother asking question after question. If only there was more information about the components available. When I look at the page for something in the system, I want to know everything about it. The more people using the system, the better the documentation needs to be. Everything needs to be clear and available to all. Remember that the audience will be more than developers, and to write for the person who's brand new to the project. Hot tip, test and decide on your documentation style as early as possible. The further along you are, the more of a process it becomes to retroactively go back and change things. Not that I've ever done that before. Simply, documentation is the core to the success of the system. Drink real fast. So how do we take all of that and apply it into a Drupal site? First, we start by creating a special content type to house all the pages we're going to add. This helps us to be organized and allows us to sort, link, and to apply or remove rules and blocks or change permissions that's needed. Next, we divide up the content into organized sections based on what they are. This will help the users navigate system in a logical way. Pay attention to the design. There might be some common elements that you might want to break out further. An example of a special section would be for a site that uses a bunch of different card styles. So first, the style guides. This is where all the foundational tokens live and includes a range of styles such as variables, mixins, and code that form the core of how the design system works. This can also include article style pages, such as content writing guides. Next, the component libraries. I prefer to divide mine by how they were built so that we can align on specific terminologies. For those of us using other languages like Vue, I would include those components in their own sections here. Paragraphs includes all the components built inside the Drupal CMS. Blocks include all custom Drupal blocks. Then we go into templates, the place for all those commonly used pages and component combinations that you want to copy from. And sometimes you might have commonly used resources that need to be highlighted. I would also put those in a separate section for extra resources. For those other content that's commonly used on or offsite that would help the team. So next, we'll create a landing page for each of those sections. They'll become a parent page for all the individual pages following. So for the individual pages, to build these pages, we want to use a mixture of existing components and maybe take over a few WYSIWYG HTML areas. The foundational element demos are usually built by adding HTML to the WYSIWYG. An enhancement would be to create a module with blocks for each foundational item that can be placed on the page. That way, code could be out of the content editor. And I guess let's add that to the to-do list. Gonna need a ticket for that. So I like to use tabs to switch between the different parts by adding tabs for the data that we have available. Like we touched on earlier, here you can show how something outputs in a screen reader or how it even looks in grayscale. Depending on the amount of variance, sometimes we break up the overviews into multiple tabs. Resources include the design files and other helpful things. Some projects have links out to the source code in the repo. That can be helpful in the short term, but harder to maintain. For components, I add an admin tab. The admin tab includes information for the content editor. This includes tables that all the available options and description of what they do. A nice touch is to include a screenshot of what the admin editing screen looks like. While the system being in Drupal makes it easier to demonstrate the Drupal-based components and other items, this approach shouldn't leave you feeling limited on the languages or tools used. If you want to use other sites or services such as CodePen or Storybook, Use the Drupal pages as the landing page and link out to whatever it is from there. These pages can be used as the starting point. Pictured here is a component from IBM's Carbon design system, with as many links out that lead out to other code examples and demos. Multiple systems can work in peace. Once you have all these pages made, let's place them on their parent pages. Let's also create a menu for each of these items. How you display the menu is up to you. I like to have a flyout menu with a little trigger button on the bottom. Next to that, you can add extra buttons for tools like a grid overlay or accessibility linting. And everything's beautiful. Now, what to name it? For real though, you don't need a fancy name or a code name, but that's up to you and the team. So there will come a time where you have to sell making a design system. No matter where you're working at, you can have to sell it to people at all levels, such as stakeholders, product managers, the team, and yourself. No matter where you are in the process, selling design system never really stops. Selling a design system can possibly be the hardest part of the process. At the end of the day, the bigger the system, the more buy-in you'll need. Adjust the pitch accordingly. Just like documentation, know the audience and tailor it to them. Explain how will design system benefit them. The goal is to not only get approval, but to get people excited about it. Let's look at a few key points that just might help with that. The whys. Why? Why not? This quote by Andrew Coldwell sums it up nicely. If you believe in design systems and want to see one thrive at your company, you need a compelling case that's tailored to your business, team, and user needs. This works to address issues for all teams such as content, SEO, analytics, testing, creative, UX, delivery, and development. This is a starting point and can be expanded as needed. Consistency is key. As we talked about earlier, for more than just a website, working towards bridging the gap between designers and developers, consistency provides standardized design elements and components to be used across the site to create more predictable and easy to understand website. Reusability for building. Reusability is different than consistency. Consistency means that it will look and work the same each time while flowing with the rest of the site. Reusability means that something is available to be used over and over again. Components and patterns must be designed and developed with reusability in mind. Doing so allows content, ideas, prototypes, and variants to take less time to be built, helping the team gain insights and quick approval. Updates can be shipped faster with less new code, and saving time and money. Reusability for growing. This is for new additions over time. Things can be reused or repurposed for new requests. To create something new, the team doesn't have to worry about things like buttons or inputs. It can be instead focus on tasks like user experience for the overall flow. Remember, build bridges, not dams. Creating new things helps the system grow and be more mature while providing quicker and easier iterations that are open for experimentation. Usability. The more code required for unique interface elements, cognitive load, page weight, and chances for error increase. Having a proven and established library of things to work from limits the conflicts that would prevent a user from reaching their goals. Having a strong brand and user experience can set the brand apart from the competition. Accessibility. Accessibility improves user experience for disabled people, older people, and people who use older devices. Use your design system's foundations to document your standards. Within the system, testable and enforceable guidelines can be set. Performantly, I might have used a little creative license there. Components should all be as optimized as possible, and when coupled with reusability, leads to a great performing site. Maintainability. The system is living, meaning it will require ongoing maintenance and improvements as needs arise. It is so easy to intensely focus on the parts of a system's creation while losing focus on how the system will grow and evolve. Plan for the future as early as possible. Establish realistic workflows and set expectations that work for your project and team. This is a collaborative team effort that will require input and support from all. Remember, it probably won't be perfect at first. Build something and release it iteratively. Focus on getting the basics right, building strong foundations, and creating a semantic system for naming conventions. In the end, be an advocate and guardian for the system and inspire others to do the same.